Hi there, it's Dave Bonshor to talk about the Tamlyn Xtreme Blocks, Extreme Mounting Blocks. We're going to talk today about the large light mount block. In this case, it has a 4-inch hole in it to go over a 4-inch round receptacle. But the principles that we're going to be talking about today apply whatever type of hole this has in it. Often these are going to be shipped without a hole at all, and you're going to be pulling a wire through, but the integration of the block into the siding and into the house wrap is going to be the same regardless of what style block it is. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to center this 4-inch hole over the 4-inch receptacle, and then we're going to mark the perimeter of the block. So I'm just going to do that. And your eye is actually extremely accurate in this case, as long as you look to, you're looking at this thing dead on. So now I'm pretty happy with that as being centered. I'm going to mark the top perimeter of this block, because we wouldn't want to just install the block like this, because what would happen is that any water that's on this house wrap might find its way behind the block here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a slit in the paper, and we're going to go about 1 inch down here so that that paper is overlapping the top of the block about 1 inch, and then we're going to apply some flashing tape to it so that that paper is attached directly to the face of the block. So we're going to mark another mark. We've got the mark of the perimeter of the block. It might be a little hard to see against the dark green, but I'm going to mark a 1-inch line. And now I'm going to cut from the outside of the block and 1 inch down from the top of the block. I'm going to cut that paper. Make sure that that's gone through, which it has. And now I'm going to slip the block underneath. I'm going to make sure that I'm still centered. I'm going to plumb this. I'll put a line just so that I got a plumb line there. Now, as far as attachment of the block to the wall, because we're going to attach it now, I like to use a panhead screw, but you could also be using shingle nails or siding nails. In this case, is a fairly big block. We're going to put 6 screws in. So that's very sturdy on the wall. You couldn't possibly pull that on. The next thing we're going to do is to seal this block to the house wrap. So we've got our block mounted on the wall, centered over top of the receptacle. We've made sure that our paper is overlapping the top flange of the block. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run flashing tape up this side, and across the top of the block. So I've pre-cut these guys. We're going to put the sides on first, because we want the top to overlap them. So here you can see our tape is going to be stuck both to the house wrap and to the top flange of the installation flange. So our block's installed, our flashing's on, and it's been rolled down to adhere to the WRB, to the paper. Now we're going to complete this installation with LP Smart Lap, but in case you're using a panel product like a Hardy panel, what follows is it's the same. The installation would have been the same whether it was stucco or siding of any kind. And just to demonstrate quickly how you would complete this installation if you were using a panel product, you would just cut a hole in your panel the width of this block and the distance from the bottom of the block, not including the overlap, to the top of the end dam. So you can measure that for yourself, but it's about 8 by 11 3/4, and then you would just push the panel in so that it's slid up underneath the block and overlapped at the top, and that'd be all you'd have to do. So the panel is going to overlap the block at the top, and the block is going to overlap the panel at the bottom. So we have our shingle fashion installation with all the different components. So we've got our flashing tape installed around the block. Now it's time to put the siding around the block, and I guess the principles again are to reinforce it, are to make sure that the shingle fashion takes place. All these components are shingling over each other, just like a roof. Let's think of the wall as a vertical roof. The principles are exactly the same. We want everything overlapping the thing below it. So I've already cut these, but so we're going to make sure that this course of siding tucks up underneath the block. Now I'm not following, obviously I'm using screws just for convenience because this is going to be coming apart. You would be following the manufacturer's recommendations as far as the attachment of the siding, whatever you're using. Now, different manufacturers, different siding components are going to require for different clearances around the block. I like to keep things fairly close to the block and leave the expansion room at the joint. But you may have a different opinion, and that's okay. Depends on how long the piece is. There's a lot of factors. In this case, I'm butting right up to the block. And so our last piece is going to overlap this whole assembly. It's going to shingle over the top of everything. You can see these little end dams. Well, you'll have looked at them when you unboxed. These little end dams serve to prevent water from spilling over the side of the block, but they also serve as a reminder to maintain a clearance between the top of the block and that cut that's over top of the block. You don't want that pressed down inside. Don't make a cut where the end dam is so that it fits tight to the block. All siding, regardless of whether it's wood composite like this stuff, or it's fiber cement or PVC, or regardless of what type of siding you're talking about, there has to be a clearance here between the top of the block and the cut in the siding to prevent wicking up of the water. The other thing that should happen if this was a real installation is that all of these edges that were cut would have been primed, at least sealed off. So that's it. We're all installed. Your painter may decide, or your manufacturer may require that this joint be caulked. Myself, I'd like to minimize caulking, and in this case, I would have primed the ends of those pieces and I wouldn't have caulked here. Now if you're spraying over this whole thing, then caulking may suit you well, but in this case I consider this installation finished. Other than the things that I mentioned about priming the cut ends. So that's it. Thanks very much. And this thing's ready for the electrician to pull out his wire and install his fixture on. Thank you.